This is a video for homework help for the assignment given by Mr. Seltzer on September 15th. The due date is September 23rd. Some scholars were struggling with this assignment, so I'm going to do a little bit of a review of what was gone over in class to help you out with completing your slides. So one thing that you need to remember is you will have a set of letters on your slide. The first letter that you see in that set is the operation that you're going to use with the numbers you are given. So if I see M, I know I'm going to multiply. If I see A, I know I'm going to add. If I see D, I'm going to divide. And if I see S, I'm going to subtract. Now you're going to see a second letter on your slide. These letters represent the answer that you're going to write in decimal form, in fraction form, in a percent, and with words. So this is just an example. These numbers are not what you were given for your homework assignment, so please do not write these answers on your slides. This is just an example to show you how to complete the slide. You have to put in the numbers that you were given in order to get the correct answer. So if I have my first slide and it says M on the first letter, what I'm going to do is multiply the numbers in parentheses. So here I would multiply 4 times 3, and I know that 4 times 3 is 12. So what I need to do with that number 12 is write it in decimal form for my first answer. When I write a number in decimal form, I'm going to put the whole number followed by a decimal point and then a 0. Next, I need to write this answer in a fraction form. So 12 is a whole number. In order to make a whole number into a fraction, I need to take the whole number and put it in the numerator, and I need to put 1 in the denominator. Now, when you type this in your slide, you're going to have to put your whole number answer, and then a slide slash to represent your fraction bar, and then your 1. So my answer here is 12. To make 12 into a fraction, I would put 12 over 1. Now I need to write that answer as a percentage. So to make a number into a percentage, I could look at the first answer I have, and I take that decimal place, and I move it 2 spaces or 2 place values to the right. So I'm going to go 1, 2. It would end up here. I would fill in a 0 to hold that place. Okay, so then when I rewrite it, I end up with 1200, percent. And I get 1200 because I want to multiply by 100 to make it out of 100%. So now I need to put it in words. So how do I write 12 in words? I just write it out. So that would be if I were multiplying. Now, when you flip to your next slide, you will be adding your numbers that are given to you in parentheses. So you're going to have different answers. Okay, so if this was my slide and I was given 4 and 3, I would add them together and I would get the number 7. So again, 7 is a whole number. To write it as a decimal, I would just write my whole number followed by a decimal and a 0. Then I want to write that as a fraction. So to write a whole number as a fraction, I do the same thing that I did in the previous slide, which would be to put 7 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. Again, you're going to have to use that side slash in order to represent your fraction bar. So then I need to write this as a percent. I go back up to my decimal, and I make the decimal move 2 places to the right. 1, 2. I would fill a 0 in here. That would give me 700%. And then I need to write my answer in word form. So my answer is 7. Okay, The next slide that you would see, you would have to use the operation of division. So you would see the letter D on the left-hand side. Okay, so if I want to divide, now my equation would be 4 divided by 3. Now that's a little bit of a tricky division problem because it won't come out evenly. So what you can do is you can grab a calculator and just plug that into your calculator. 4 divided by 3 equals 1.3. Okay, you could actually, it does come out to 1.33333. So if you wanted, you could put 1.33. That would be okay. It's actually a continuing decimal. So that would be a good answer for that one. In your case, you may not have a repeating decimal. I believe it comes out to be an even half. Okay, then if I want to put that in fraction form, well, my fraction would be 4 over 3, but that's an improper fraction. So I can go back to this decimal and I see 1 in the whole number place value, so it's 1. And then I know that 0.3 is actually 1/3 in fraction form. So that's how I would write that as a fraction. Now I need to write it as a percent. So again, I'm going to go up to my decimal form and I'm going to move it 2 spaces, 1, 2, and this would end up being 133%. And then I have to write that in words. Now when I write it in words, I'm going to go to my fraction form and I'm going to write that fraction out in words. So I'm going to write 1 and 1/3. So that's how I would divide my two numbers and write my answers. Now the last slide you would have subtraction. So you would have S, and then you would have to subtract your numbers. Now this one for me is going to be pretty simple because it's just 4 and 3. It'd be 4 minus 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. To write that as a decimal, I put the whole number, decimal 0. To write it as a fraction, I take my whole number of 1 and put it in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. And then as a percent, I would move the decimal 2 spaces to the right. That would make 100%. And then I would write it in word form, which would just be 1. Now, what would get a little bit tricky would be if one of your slides had a smaller number as your first value and a larger number as your second value. So if I flipped these two numbers around and I'm subtracting, I'm not going to come up with positive 1 as my answer. Because what's happening, you can look at a number line here. Okay? If I'm starting with 3, so I have 3 of something. I start at 3 on the number line. I'm taking away, I'm subtracting. I'm going to go to the left on my number line. So I have to go 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, because I had 3 minus 4. Here's where I end up. I end up at -1. So my answer then here, decimal form, would be -1.0. And in fraction form, it would be -1 over 1. As a percent, it would be -100%. And in words, I would have to write -1. Okay, so be careful. If you have a smaller number first, followed by a larger number, and you're subtracting, you need to make sure that you use a number line or just be aware that your answer will come out to be a negative answer.